Welcome back to the Content Contributor course. Let's continue our discussion by talking about the site browser a little bit further. I'm currently on the dashboard of my site on the dotCMS backend, but if I wanted to get back to the site browser, I simply go to the global navigation on the left-hand side, find my Site Tools group, and choose Browser. It's important to note, though, that the dotCMS backend can vary, as it is customizable. So what you see on screen for me might be different than what you find in your own backend, as well as what you find in your colleague's backend, as it also depends on what you are allowed or permitted to view. So let's click on Browser to take a look at our site browser once again. Now, our global navigation is always here. We have essentially a one-page app sort of approach. We can access any part of dotCMS that we are permitted to at any time by using the navigation on the left. However, we may want to hide it as it can take up a bit of space on the screen. To do so, we can click the arrow in the top left of the page to minimize our navigation. We can still access our global navigation simply by hovering over any of the icons, and they collapse when we're not. This allows us a bit more room to interact with the tool. Now on the left-hand side, we can see our file structure. This is the folder and file structure of the site. We can navigate through any of these folders to find exactly what we're looking for. I can simply click on any of the folders I'd like to access to view any of the files or pages within that folder. You'll notice that some folders have plus signs next to them. This means that there are other folders within that folder. I can click on the plus sign to expand that folder and view the other folders within it. I can continue down until I've reached the point that I'm looking for. I can click on that folder and view the files within it. Then, if I ever want to go back to the very top end or root of my site, I can click on my URL in the top left. This will take me all the way back to the root. Within our folders, we'll see a number of different items. We may see pages as displayed here with the index, and the index page is very important, as this is essentially the default page for this folder. Since we're at the root of our site, that means this is essentially the default page of our website. As you can tell from our friendly name next to the language identifier, we can see this is the home page, and it's exactly that, our home page for the site, just as we discussed before. If I double click on the index, that will navigate me directly to that page in my preview. Here I can navigate and test out my site as I wish, or again, click on Edit to edit the page. I can also get a live view of the page, which may show different things in our preview, as certain things might not have been published yet. If I ever want to go back to the site browser from this view, I can simply go to the top of the page and click Browser. That takes me right back to where I was. To the right of the name, we'll see the status column. This lets us know whether or not this content is currently being edited, or if it's published and live, or even if it's been archived. We can see the language that this content is in, the friendly name of that content, the modified user and modified date for when that was last modified. If we right-click on anything within the site browser, we have some options. Here I can choose to open the preview, view the page properties, copy this item, unpublish the item, archive it, publish it, move it to another location, push publish it, add it to a bundle, unlock it if it is locked, mark for copy, cut, or close, which will close the menu. Let's perform a simple example of what we can do in the site browser. To start, let's add a new folder. If I want to add a folder to the root level, I can right-click on the URL in the top left and choose Add Folder. Now I can give that folder a title. For now, I'm going to call this Training. And when I click away, it will add the name URL. We can choose to show this on menu. We can add specific file extensions. For instance, we can say *.jpg to allow any file name, but it must be a JPEG file. And we can use commas to add multiple different file types. However, if we leave this blank, that will allow any accepted file extensions into this folder. The default file asset type allows us to choose between a file or an image. When we are adding a file to this folder, it will choose to add it as a file or as an image, which has slightly different implications. So, if we're using this folder to add all kinds of files, we'll leave it as file. Then we'll click Save. And now we have added a training folder to the root. Clicking on the folder will take us within it, and we can see we don't currently have anything inside of it yet. If we wanted to add something to the folder, there's a couple of ways to do so. We can either select the folder by clicking on it, and then click the plus sign in the top right once we have navigated to the folder we'd like to add it to. Here we can choose to add a folder, a page, an image or file, multiple files, or a menu link. We can also right-click on the folder within the structure itself and choose New. Here we'll see all of the same options we saw in the plus sign. Let's go ahead and add a page to this folder. We'll click Page, and then we can choose the type of page we'd wish to create. You'll notice the default is selected, and in this case, my default is just a page. We have the options for destination, landing page, a page, product line, and region. I'm going to leave this as just a default page. Then I'll click Select. Now I can see my page properties, which we saw briefly before. You'll notice our host or folder is already selected as training because we are adding this to the training folder. However, we could choose to save this somewhere else by clicking the dropdown, choosing the site we'd like to save it in, and navigating to the folder that we would like it to exist in. Now we can provide a title. I'm simply going to call this training page. You'll notice that again, our URL is automatically populated. However, I would like to make this my index page. So I will remove that training page URL and instead add index. That makes this page the default page of the folder. Below that, we'll see our template. You'll notice the default template is currently selected for this site. If I click the dropdown, I have a number of different options to choose from. For instance, a file template design example, a default template, default with breadcrumbs, a destination, a region, a blank page, etc. All of these will differ depending on your site and the templates that have been created for you. In this case, I will leave the default template. We could add things like a subtitle, an image, and a different friendly name. We can also choose to show this on the menu. That means it would appear in our site's navigation. In this case, we're not going to check this box yet. I'll show you a little bit later why. Then we can also modify our sort order. You'll see at the top we also have options for SEO, where we can add in a canonical URL, an SEO title, SEO description, and keywords, so that we can ensure that this page is optimized for SEO. We can also access the Advanced Properties tab if we have access. In this tab, we can add metadata for the page, add a redirect URL in case that page ever dies, and we can modify the cache. We can also choose to require this to be a secure page. In this case, I'm going to leave things as they are and simply click Save. Now that we've saved the page, dotCMS navigates us to a preview of that page. You'll notice there's currently nothing here because, like we discussed previously, there is no content that exists on the page natively. We would need to add that content. So let's go back to our site browser by going to the top and clicking Browser. Here we can see the index page that we created. You'll notice that the status is orange, meaning that this page has been saved but not published. So people visiting our site cannot currently see it. Now that we have a page within our folder, let's go ahead and add some content to it by double-clicking on the page and then click Edit. Let's add something simple here so we know what we're looking at. I'm going to scroll down on the right-hand side to choose an item that I'd like to add. Here, I'll choose a rich text item. I can either click and drag the rich text itself, or click the arrow to the top right to choose a specific rich text item. In my case, I'm going to go back by clicking on the arrow in the top left next to search and just choose rich text. I'll click and drag it into this blue box, which is our container. Here, I'll give it a title and a simple body. You'll notice that we have a WYSIWYG editor where we can modify our text however we see fit. Once we're done, we can simply click Publish to save and publish the content. Then I can close my rich text editor, and we have our text. Now going back to the site browser, by clicking on Browser at the top, we can see our index page still has not been published. So we can't actually see it on our site yet. Let's go ahead and right-click on Index and choose Publish. Whether or not you can publish content yourself on your page is entirely up to your organization. Some organizations only allow certain members the permissions to publish content on their page. That way, we ensure that only the appropriate content is published. However, you may be able to publish content yourself. It entirely depends on your organization's procedures. Now we can see the green check mark under status, and we know that our index page is published. It is live on our site, and any visitors could view it. Now, if we wanted to get to our training index page, our visitors would have to know the URL for that page, unless they can access it through navigation. So let's add it to our navigation so that visitors could easily access it. To do so, I will right-click on my training folder. Click Edit Folder to go to the folder's properties. And now I'll check the Show on Menu box. Then I'll click Save. And now the training folder will appear in our site's navigation. To test this, let's act as if we are someone just visiting our site. Let's click on our URL in the top left, and then double-click on the index. And here we can see our training page with the text that we added. Here is the homepage for our site. Now, across the top, we can see in the navigation, Training. That wasn't there before. It's only there because we added it. If we click on this, we'll see that it takes us directly to our training page. Here we can see, Welcome to the training page. Now, there's something I'd like to point out about this. You may recall, if we go back to our site browser and right-click to view the page properties of our training page index, here we'll see that scrolling to the bottom, Show on Menu is not checked. So how are we able to view this training page? Well, keep in mind, this page is not what is in the navigation. If we scroll up, we'll see the title of this is Training Page, and the host or folder is Training. However, if I close this window, right-click on the training folder and click Edit, we'll see here the folder itself is what we have shown on the menu. So why are we seeing the training page? That's because, again, we made it our index page. This means if we navigate to the training folder from our site, we'll see the training page first and foremost. This is great, but taking a look at our preview once again, we can see that some of our navigation actually has a dropdown. Well, how does this work? There are a number of ways that we can make this happen. If we simply go back to our site browser, we can add anything within this folder to show on the menu as well. We're going to talk about how, but first let's add something else to the folder. If I click the plus sign in the top right, I can add another folder within this folder. Here, let's add an images folder. Now this folder will serve as a repository for any images within the training folder. So it may not be something we want to show on menu. So we'll leave that box unchecked for now. At the bottom, however, you'll see the default file asset type. And again, we could click the dropdown and choose image instead of file. We also could limit this to only certain file types. So if we only wanted to see, say, JPEGs and not PNGs, we could do so. I'm going to click Save. And now we have an images folder. Now again, we haven't added this to our navigation because we want to allow it to exist just on the back end. Here, I'll double click on the images folder to open it, and let's add an image to this folder. If I click the plus sign, now I can add an image or file. You may notice that image is selected automatically, and that's because of the default file type we set for the folder. I'll click select, and now we see an image properties page. Here we can click choose file under file asset to choose the image file we'd like to add. Let's add this image here. It will upload, and now you'll see it automatically pulls the title and file name from the original file name. But we can modify this. For instance, I can just remove the .jpeg from the title. I can also add some tags here if I wish, which would help with categorizing and organizing our content. And this could be used for displaying specific tagged content to certain users. In my file asset, I can see a preview of that image, and you'll notice a button to edit the image at the bottom right. We'll talk about this a little bit more later in the course. For now, I'll scroll down, and I could add a description here if I wish. And now I can choose to publish this image. It's been saved and published. I can close it, and here it is. It exists within the folder. This image will not yet appear anywhere within our site, unless, again, we can access it directly using the URL. But we can use it within our site. As we talked about previously, content can be reused all over our site. So adding it here means that this image can now be used anywhere else on our site, or even in other sites. Let's navigate back to the root by clicking on the URL in the top left. Then we'll double click on index to go back to our preview of our homepage. If I was a user accessing this site for the first time and I wanted some help with training, I would probably click on training. However, that simply takes me to a page saying, welcome to training. What if I wanted a drop down here to allow us to access any number of pages within this training folder quickly and easily? I can easily do that by adding items to our training folder and having them show on menu. Let's go back to our site browser and back to the training folder. And I could simply right click on, say, my images folder here, click edit folder, and then choose show on menu. But again, this isn't a folder that would be helpful to show in the navigation. What if what I wanted to show under that navigation option exists somewhere else in the site? Well, that's where menu links come in handy. You may have noticed when we click the plus sign or right click and add, we have an option for a menu link. Here we can choose a title, like say, Contact Us. And we can choose for this to be an internal link, an external link, or a code link. In our case, we're going to stick with an internal link. This means we'll be linking to somewhere else within our site. I'm going to click Browse, and this will open a window that lets me navigate through my various sites and choose where I'd like this menu link to take you once you click it. In this case, I'm going to stick to the demo.cms.com site and then choose the Contact Us folder, and I'll select Contact Us. This is a page where folks can reach out for some assistance. Now, we can choose whether or not we'd like this menu link to open the target in the same window, a new window, or the parent window. In this case, I'll have it open in the same window. Again, we can modify the sort order, and we could choose to show this on menu. In this case, I will check the Show on Menu box. Then I'll click Save and Publish. Now, let's navigate back to the home page by clicking on the URL, double-clicking the index, and here we can see our training with a drop-down to Contact Us. I can click on the Contact Us link, and that will take me to a Contact Us page where someone can reach out for some assistance by entering in their information.